Oh, this is awful. Just awful. The reason Jason is so thin while you're overweight must be because you don't even bother to feed him properly.
Can you leave the living room? With you taking up all this space, it feels cramped and annoying.
That's how the harassment from my mother-in-law, Mary, and husband, Jason, began. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to turn the tables and fight back. My name is Michelle, and I'm 30 years old. I met Jason at work. He's 5 years older than me, and we dated for 2 years before getting married just a month ago. We were still newlyweds, basking in the excitement of starting our life together. The thrill of transitioning from boyfriend to husband was something I'd never experienced before. We had a new place, a new life. It was full of hope and fresh beginnings. Jason had asked me to be a stay-at-home wife, so I left my job to focus on supporting our home.
I was just thinking, maybe our next step will be having a baby with Jason, hee hee.
Imagining that, I couldn't help but grin, feeling like I was at the peak of happiness. Life was blissful, and I spent my days feeling at peace, imagining how our happiness would only grow with time. One weekend, Jason suddenly said to me,
Hey, you've been dressing kind of sloppy lately. All you wear are loose clothes, and you don't even try to look stylish anymore.
Sure, being at home every day was different from when we used to go out on dates all the time. I brushed it off, replying with a light-hearted laugh.
Oh, really? I hadn't noticed.
Though, I still made an effort to get ready every morning before he woke up, doing my makeup, fixing my hair. Even the dress I was wearing was a trendy one. Apparently, that didn't matter to him. I wondered,
What's going on? Is he in a bad mood?
A few days later, I decided to wear something different, slacks that would show off my figure. Since Jason had the day off, I hoped he'd compliment me. While vacuuming near his room, Jason stepped out, sighed, and said,
Hey, have you gained weight? You're just lying around the house all day, aren't you?
What? No way. I weigh myself every day, and my BMI is fine. I also make sure to walk to the store every day to stay active.
I replied. However, Jason shot back.
You think numbers on a scale mean anything? Have you even looked at yourself in the mirror? 1 month of marriage, and you've already been blowing through my money and indulging yourself. Huh, you're just getting lazy.
His words left me speechless.
Why are you saying such mean things? You never used to talk like this.
I felt disheartened by his words, but with a mix of frustration, I responded. Then, as if to add insult to injury, he muttered,
I'm sick of looking at your sloppy self,
and slammed the door shut right in front of me. I was left sitting alone in the silent hallway, stunned and exhausted.
Was he always like this? Or did I really gain weight?
I pinched my stomach. Okay, maybe there was a little extra. I could pinch a little bit of flesh between my index finger and thumb, so yeah, maybe he was right, I might have gained some weight. Still, we had only been married for a month. How could things go downhill so fast? Does anyone ever say something like this out of the blue? Before we got married, Jason was so kind. Although, his behavior had changed so drastically that I was both hurt and confused. Soon after, I found out Jason had been complaining to his mom, saying things like,
Michelle is spending all my money,
and
she's slacking off.
Mary took every word he said as gospel and started visiting our house nearly every day. Sometimes she even stayed the night, making it feel like she had practically moved in. The two of them teamed up, harassing me with cruel comments and endless criticisms. Why would he tell such a ridiculous lie? Mary would say things like,
Oh, if only you weren't so fat, we'd have more space. Poor Jason can barely eat because of your indulgence.
No matter how much I tried to explain myself, she refused to listen. Whenever I set the table, she'd snatch food away, saying,
Does someone your size really need this meal?
There were even days when Jason told me,
Mom and I will eat alone. Why don't you leave the living room? It's cramped enough with you in here.
I kept telling myself,
Jason's just in a bad mood today. Tomorrow will be better, just like before.
However, things only got worse. Jason started ignoring me altogether. He wouldn't even say good morning, good night, or thank you anymore. I kept trying my best to talk to him. We stopped sharing the same bedroom, and he became increasingly distant. When he did talk, it was only to call me fat or disgusting. I felt so anxious that I finally worked up the courage to confront him.
Jason, it hurts when you ignore me. Can we at least talk?
I asked. Without even looking at me, he replied,
I only talk to people who are worth my time. Why would I want anyone to think my wife is some sloppy woman like you? If you want to talk to me, lose some weight first.
I snapped.
6 pounds, Jason. I've only gained 6 pounds. Why are you acting like this? What's really going on? Why did you even marry me if you hate me so much?
Though, he just smirked and said,
Have you ever seen what 6 pounds of meat looks like? It's a lot. Now, stop talking.
That was the end of it. No matter how hard I tried, he wouldn't speak to me again. How childish can he be? Looking at a photo of us smiling together on our wedding day, I thought,
I guess this is who he really is. Just like Mary. Maybe our marriage is already over.
A few weeks later, as I was cleaning the kitchen, Jason suddenly asked,
Oh, are you cooking dinner?
No, tomorrow's garbage day, so I'm just cleaning up the kitchen scraps.
I replied. He grinned.
Well, how about I cook tonight? I'll make my specialty.
Did he have a change of heart? No, there's no way he'd suddenly become kind after being so cold toward me. Nevertheless, I decided not to say anything and just nodded.
Hey, you haven't been eating much lately, have you? I guess I felt a little bad. I'll whip up something you'll love.
It was the first time he had spoken to me kindly in weeks. After I finished all my tasks and had been sitting in the living room for about 20 minutes, Jason brought over the food he had prepared in the kitchen. A white plate of food was placed right in front of me. Macaroni and cheese, I guess? There were 3 separate servings, and at first glance, they all looked pretty much the same. Then, something felt off.
Oh, there aren't any spoons. Let me grab some.
While Jason went to grab spoons for everyone, I took a closer look at the dish on my plate. Wait. Could this really be? It had an unexpected topping. I noticed it because there was a faint, sharp smell coming from it. I absolutely can't forgive this. I thought fiercely. All the words, the harassment I had endured, his cold indifference, and the pain of not being treated like a person built up inside me, and then, boom. I exploded. This is the moment I fight back.
Hey, why don't you grab us some beer from the fridge?
Yo, beer goes great with macaroni and cheese. Be right back.
With a smug look, Jason turned his back and headed toward the fridge. In that moment, I swiftly swapped the plate in front of me with the one across the table. Just then, Mary appeared, sneering.
Why are you already sitting? Who do you think you are?
She took the seat directly across from me.
Now that everyone's here, let's dig in.
I said. Mary popped open a can of beer and made a gesture as if to toast. Jason began eating the food he had prepared, taking several bites. Watching the grin spread across his face, I smiled brightly and said,
"This is delicious. Just as expected from your specialty dish, right?"
Jason's face froze.
What?
He instinctively put his hand over his mouth in shock, or rather, he looked a bit taken aback.
"Come on, aren't you going to eat? Here, let me feed you a bite."
I teased, holding up a spoonful from my plate. He panicked.
Wait, no.
"Oh, don't be shy. You made so much, and I don't want to get fat, so you have to help me eat it."
I forcefully shoved a spoonful of food into his mouth.
Gah. Ew.
At the same time, Mary was eating her own portion and suddenly spat it out with a loud.
Duh.
While Jason panicked, Mary sprayed food all over the place.
What?
Jason turned, confused. I had swapped the plates, so Mary ended up eating the extra spicy macaroni and cheese. Though, what I shoved into his mouth was the regular version. Still, he must have assumed it was spicy and reacted without thinking. Hearing the two of them make noises like clogged drains, I couldn't help but think. They really are two of a kind.
What is this horrible food? What on earth did you do?
Mary slammed her plate down and lunged at me, but I calmly explained.
"It wasn't me who made it. Jason did."
Her face turned bright red as she stared at him, shocked by the truth.
What?
She looked at Jason, who stood frozen with his head down, trembling slightly. I slammed my hand on the table and leaned close to his face.
"You added this, didn't you?"
I held up the infamous bottle of death sauce. Waving the bottle at him, I said,
"I threw that away because even a single drop was too spicy to handle. I didn't want to hear any more complaints from you about my cooking. Did you seriously fish it out of the trash to sabotage my meal?"
This sauce is said to be over 100 times spicier than Tabasco. It's a well-known product, far too intense for the average person to handle. I had thrown the whole bottle into the trash to ensure it wouldn't be used again. Jason had found the discarded bottle of sauce in the trash, intending to mix it into my dish as a prank. This wasn't just some harmless joke, this could have gone seriously wrong. Mary, realizing what had happened, looked at Jason with a mix of disgust and disappointment.
The plate I gave Mom. I meant for Michelle to eat that one.
Jason stammered.
What, then that was supposed to be your meal?
"I'm not your garbage disposal. And besides, there's already a macaroni on the plate that came from your mouth. Gross."
Obviously, no thanks.
"Enough games, Jason. Explain yourself."
I demanded, applying pressure.
Because you've gained weight. I thought if I added something spicy, you'd sweat more, boost your metabolism and, lose weight.
He stuttered, grasping for excuses.
"What are you even talking about?"
I asked, genuinely confused.
Sweating makes you lose weight. It's a fact.
Jason protested, his voice cracking as he tried to justify himself.
"Oh, and I found this too. What's this?"
What?
His eyes widened in shock. It was a package decorated with pictures of insects, a mix of ants, grasshoppers, caterpillars, and crickets.
"This is already opened, isn't it? You knew I hate bugs and still mix them into my food? Was that a prank too? Hey, do you remember what we had for dinner last night? It was dumplings, right? I used garlic chives, garlic, and cabbage. And the night before that, we had jambalaya. I used the usual vegetables, green peppers, onions, and made it with spices and seasonings. But even then, you yelled, 'How dare you serve jambalaya that's neither spicy nor does it smell good?' Were you secretly adding something only to my portion?"
I leaned in even closer, locking eyes with him.
"Since you bought these bugs, why don't you eat them yourself? Prove to me they help with weight loss.
I slammed the plate down in front of him. I turned to Mary.
You've been taking my meals and eating them yourself, haven't you? Guess you've been the one enjoying the bug-infused food all this time.
She turned pale, casting a horrified glance at Jason.
Did you really think I'd be thrilled when you suddenly offered to cook for me today?
I asked, slamming my hand on the table again. Jason flinched, visibly shaken.
Do you think you can cry your way out of this? You're ridiculous. Any decent person would know better. You're not even acting human at this point, Jason.
Then I turned toward Mary.
And you joining in on his delusional games, believing every lie he told you, and harassing me. You're no better.
Her face contorted, and she stammered.
I was only worried about you.
I knew her words were worthless. The room fell into a heavy silence. Not that it was my fault, it wasn't.
So, Jason,
I said, breaking the silence.
Let's wrap this up. I just have one last question.
Last question.
Jason mumbled nervously.
Tell me the truth. Was I just in your way?
Jason, like a petulant child, blurted out.
I thought you'd have more savings from when you were single. But no, you're broke, and you got fat. That's why I'm mad.
Fury boiled inside me.
Got it. Since I have no place in this house anymore, let's get a divorce.
What once felt like a dream seemed like a distant memory, even though only a short time had passed. I began packing my things into a large suitcase, ready to leave. There's no place for me here. I thought, it's better if I leave.
Looks like I'll have to use that paper I picked up the other day. Well, since this is the end.
I placed the nearly completed marital settlement agreement sheet on the table, with only Jason's signature left.
I'm going back to my parents' house,
I said. Jason began to panic.
I didn't mean for things to go this far.
Well,
I replied coldly.
Any reasonable person would have seen this coming. And if you're a decent person, you'll sign this paper.
In a bizarre attempt to make amends, Jason grabbed the plate of spicy dish meant for his mother and shoveled it into his mouth.
I'll eat it all. Guag, it's so spicy.
He cried. No one wants to hear that disgusting, drain-like sound ever again.
What's the point of that? Eating it isn't an apology.
I added with a smirk.
Oh, and I'm sorry I don't have any savings. But you'd better be ready, because I am filing for an equitable division of our assets.
Huh?
Jason and Mary stared at me in disbelief. Without another word, I grabbed my suitcase and walked out, never looking back. I moved back to my parents' house, and our divorce went through smoothly. A friend of mine, who worked at the same company as Jason, told me that news of our divorce spread quickly at his office. Jason became a social outcast, and even his relationship with Mary soured after the infamous dish incident. Years later, I found someone new, someone kind and caring. As I rubbed my growing belly, I smiled.
The healthier I eat, the better for the baby,
I said. My new partner, Tom, grinned and teased.
Yeah, but don't go overboard. Let's treat ourselves to a nice meal today, though.
A new life has begun to grow inside me.
Looks don't matter. I just hope this little one grows up to be kind and loves to eat with joy,
I say as I head out to a buffet. I'm already thinking about how, once the baby is born, the three of us can go together next time.
I'll always make sure both of you have plenty of delicious food. You can count on me.